Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Lucifer.
I don't know who I am.
And this week we are discussing the third of the 2023 60th anniversary specials, The Giggle, written by who else? Russell T. Davies. This ain't going to be changing for at least the next couple episodes. So this episode features a lot of things. It features the return of the Celestial Toymaker from their one-off appearance in a story in the 1960s, which I heard was kind of bad. It features the debut of Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor. It's in general, it's a lot. And I feel like that's kind of what I keep coming back to with this episode is like, dear God, there is there are so many things in this episode that I feel like I can pretty definitively say there are too many things in these episodes.
I won't be rude to it and disrespect the episode, but this may be the closest in recent memory that Doctor Who has gotten to Rise of Skywalker levels of pacing.
I will say for the record, I don't hate this episode.
No.
In fact, I like this episode, but dear God.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like a ride.
So out of all the things in this episode, we open up on the first one in this historical sequence that feels... my first thought about it was that it felt Chibnall-esque, but I wasn't really sure to figure out why, other than like the big title card for what time it is, and then also like I guess the stature of the historical figure. Like I feel like when Who did celebrity historicals under like RTD and Moffat, they were like more like artists, writers, not like inventors. That feels more kind of Chibnall core of like inventors. Like you have Ada Lovelace, you have Nikola Tesla, you have that sort of thing. So that's kind of what made me think Chibnall here. But I do like this framing device here of this is a real thing. The guy John Logie Baird who invented the television. And this creepy fucking doll that was the first thing ever transmitted on television, that all really happened. Sure, there wasn't like a creepy like Toymaker like psychic signal hidden in it, but like that was real, and the dummy was really that creepy looking, which is kind of why I think in the behind the scenes RTD said like, yeah, I saw this thing and was like, oh, that's a perfect Doctor Who monster, and like I agree with him. Unfortunately, it's in this episode, so they don't really get to play around with that much other than the baseline, yeah, that's creepy image.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the historical period being like really Chibnall-y. I would say what makes it most Chibnall to me is just the visual design to it and like the sensibility it brings to history.
Yeah.
Because I would say in RTD Moffat era, there's a lot more sense of history being very quotidian in a way of just like, we're showing up and this is a famous person and they're just kind of fucking around and being an asshole in their own way. Whereas there's more of like a fawning tone to like Chibnall historicals. And I feel like that's how it is here.
So I think the difference is because remember, RTD celebrity historicals definitely get kind of dick sucky to their subjects like Shakespeare
Yeah.
or like they did that. It's just more that the Chibnall, like the RTD era had them more as characters bouncing off, whereas in Chibnall it was more like, I am animatronic figure that you find at Disneyland. I say the famous quotes and I do the thing.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes.
That's more, I feel like what the deal is here.
Again, it's a symptom of everything, just the episode needing to contain so much it feels like we spend more time with his assistant, the inventor's assistant, than we ever do. The inventor is more of like a vehicle for why this shit is happening, and we're not here to fillet the historical figure, which is a nice change of pace.
Yes. But at the same time, like the tone of it feels very Chibnall, because like ultimately these characters, like John Logie Barrett and his assistant, are not characters in this, really. They are here to have the historical bit and to get this started, but they're not really like characters that you interact with in the same way that they interacted with like Shakespeare or Agatha Christie, you know. What is really important in this setup is that we are introduced to Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker. Which go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
It's a good introduction, mostly. The accent is, honestly, maybe it was just the fact that we've seen this enough that we're used to it.
Well, so here's the thing about the accent. That's not NPH. That's RTD. It was completely scripted out and written out in the script how he wanted to say it the entire time.
Oh, yes.
Like that was what it was. It was like that before NPH even got cast.
I could have gone either way. I could have believed either happened first, but that is good to know. Again, it feels very, I don't know, well-intentioned, like, boomer white writer to take a character that originally whose sensibilities were, yes, he has a costume that is culturally appropriative, and rather than say, oh, that was the aesthetics of the time, go, no, when we bring this character back, this virtual god with no limit, he has to, for some reason, be slightly racist.
Yeah. So I think what they were going with here is like, there's been back and forth as to whether or not the toy maker originally was depicted as slightly racist, and frankly, I do not have the expertise or enough of a stake in this race to really say either way. I think decent enough arguments and points have been laid down by both sides. Like, some people did say that the actor was wearing yellowface, which is not true. Like, that is like hard confirmed. That's not actually what it was. But I think I do kind of, the accent thing doesn't bother me. Like, I get why he did it. It's just like, it's a choice, and it's like, sure, whatever. It separates him from the Master, because they definitely do like a couple like things that the Master would normally do if this was a Master episode, but I think they do manage to like diversify enough that it's not just like, oh, this is just full on ripping off what the deal with the Master is.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like the toy maker feels a lot more like a Q figure than the Master figure.
I have in my notes. I literally have in my notes. I don't know enough about Star Trek, but is this a Q thing?
Yes.
Yes, it is a Q thing. It's very, very much a Q thing. Except, like, I don't know, Q, more, it's like evil Q, like explicitly evil. Maybe not evil is the right word, but like antagonistic Q, whereas Q is just, he's genuinely just having fun, and isn't like necessarily trying to kill anyone. Yeah. Whereas the toy maker is definitely trying to kill some people, just like as a fun thing.
Yeah.
Q is chaotic neutral in a way, leaning good depending on some episodes of varying quality, and toy maker, especially by the end of explaining how much he loves the being on planet Earth, that's very much chaotic evil.
Well, as much as like, you kind of can't categorize toy maker as like on the D&D alignment chart, because part of the point is that he does not exist within human morality.
Sure.
But yes, we have this intro here where he kind of switches accents and gives him the dummy and makes a slightly racist comment towards the assistant to John Logie Baird. And then yes, that's our pre-credits. And then it cuts back to where we left off at the previous episode, and we get to element that could have been an episode in its own right, number 2, which is the state of the world where the Stooky Bill broadcast has made it so we live in a world where everyone thinks that they are always right all of the time, and the absolute chaos that causes. This is a very boomery premise from the start. Like, I get it. Britain is going through some shit right now, but it's not definitely even just Britain, though. It's everywhere in general. Like, yes, there's some boomer elements to it in terms of like the role that social media plays in it, even though I personally do agree to some extent that there is a role that social media plays in it. But like, it's more almost about like COVID denialism and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's more about that, I feel. I think my thing why I think it's boomery is that it sort of like lumps all of that together. Like, I think I groaned audibly when they said something about like canceling people, and I was just like, oh yeah. God. I mean, yeah. So that's why I say it's boomer. I don't think it's necessarily wrong, and I absolutely, like, if Britain's going through some shit, I get why they're there. It was just, like, they also lump in a few other things that just made it a bit But groany,
also,
I think the person who says...
Hold
on, let me do a quick search here. Okay.
Well, you do that.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. The person who says that, who specifically mentions canceling, is the villain.
Fair.
Like,
it is.
I like.
It is almost, in a way, the episode doesn't quite do this. Thank God, because it isn't a Chibnall episode, which might be kind of mean, but the implication that there's already a tendency for, as the Doctor says, humans using their intelligence to be stupid.
Yes.
And the games...
That's the Doctor's summation, I think, works a bit better. The other summation is very clearly, like, the villain talking.
Yes, it's heavy-handed, but this is RTD we're talking about. Of course it is. That there are games being played, even among the cancel side of, like... I don't know... There's so many discourses we could go into, but like the gamification of social justice and, you know, having good politics to create these absolutely inane, stupid fights is one internet angle. It's a credit and a flaw to the episode at the same time, because this is such a like meaty topic that could be its own episode. But no, we have to fit in. This is an anniversary. So we have to do a lot more than just the themes.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, you can kind of see it being half-baked both on the toy maker's side and in the Doctor's side, although his summation of things, I would argue, is more accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yes, we have this intro here. Which, yeah, again, and it's just great, too, the point where he's talking to the guy, and the guy's willing to explain. It's like, they all think they're right, they've gone crazy. Not me, though, I've always been right, is like, that's great. that is good as shit. It's almost like, it's kind of like I wish we had, like, 2 episodes, and we could have an episode just devoted to that, or like a Sound of Drums type situation, where you're just kind of going around and existing in that world space. Because I think it's genuinely really good. But regardless, we move on. And yeah, so we get to Unit. Kate Lethbridge Stewart continues to be the running champ for having now gone through 2 regime changes. and still being around, which is more than we can say for literally any other cast member, except for, I guess, Nick Briggs is the Daleks. And we are also reintroduced to Mel here, companion of the 6th and 7th Doctor, as the kind of returning companion plug thing. Now, so this happened recently, too, with Power of the Doctor, where both Tegan and Ace came back. And I feel like... So they didn't get a whole lot to do in those episodes other than like pure fan service stuff. And Mel doesn't get a lot in this episode either. But I feel like there's two things that make me be a little bit less annoyed by it than I was with well, I didn't even hate it in Power of the Doctor, but like what makes me like it more here, which is we know that Mel's going to be back next season. Like, she's going to be a recurring character. Like, they don't have to get all of it out now, you know? And B, there's only one of her, as opposed to, like, they had to do both Tegan and Ace, and there's also, like, a shit ton of stuff happening in Power of the Doctor, and they're talking to, like, their respective doctors, like, holograms of them, but not to the incumbent, and all of that. Where here, it's more just, like, she's not a major player in the episode, but she gets some things to do and she interacts with people, and God knows her writing in here is better than it was in the 80s, because she actually gets to do anything at all other than just scream.
Yeah, she also serves, I would argue, as kind of as a further thread into what 14's character arc ends up being through these specials.
Yeah.
In Donna kind of having her school reunion moment of, oh, this is a companion that I've never heard about because you never stop. And of course we get
which,
into
like,
that
they
later.
tried to do that in Power of the Doctor too. But unfortunately this episode at least decides what it wants to be about. The Power of the Doctor, I don't think, ever really decides what it wants to be about. Like, it may not have quite as many threads as this one, but at least this one eventually does make the very smart choice near the end to ditch all the other threads that it had going and just focus in on the thing that matters. But yes. It's funny how... So we get to Unit HQ, and there's a couple really funny things in Unit HQ. One is just the alien robot man that's just hanging out there, and they don't explain, like, what it is or where it came from. It's just hanging out and helping.
Oh my god. Okay, I thought that was something from Chibnall era that I missed. Like, they introduced Unit having some alien robot, and I just, like, I didn't know about it.
Nope.
How do you have the Z-Dex?
Shut up for the first time.
How do you have the Z-Dex? This robot. He's just like, oh, hello. Moving on.
It's like, fair enough, man. All right.
Do you think they, like, explained that in, like, a deleted exchange? Because I saw that they initially, like, explained the Doctor getting his new Sonic, and then they cut it. And, like, do you think they explained the Z-Dex and we just lost that scene?
No, well, the blanks, no, there is no explanation. Like, it's just there.
Okay.
Maybe they will go more into it in, like, future Unit episodes, because we know that Unit is still around.
I had the thought.
Yeah.
It's not that funny. Maybe it is, but, like, just the idea that, like, what if this was introduced in class and no one remembers?
I'd have no choice but to applaud him for that, honestly. I'd just be like, yeah, man, all right, fair enough.
Oh god, now I'm wondering if it, like, actually is.
No,
it's not. No, it's
That
not.
would have blown up Doctor Who Twitter.
He said it's just there and not explained. He said it's just there and not explained in the behind-the-scenes stuff. It really is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because, like, the Doctor just rolls with it. He's just like, yeah, Blinks. Of course I know Blinks.
Yeah. Fucking Blinks, man. But yes, we get the Vlinks thing, and they start kind of showing stuff about the world state, like beyond the city block that they were on. And some funny things happen. First, they show like the prime minister, and it's really funny how this episode was filmed last year and scripted 2 years ago, and because of how hilarious UK politics is, their caricature of the prime minister is already 2 prime ministers out of date. like the intent is still the same regardless of who is in office, but like the guy that they have playing the prime minister is like, oh yeah, no, you're supposed to be Boris, but Boris left like 2 years ago.
Oh man, that's funny.
Then we get Kate demonstrating like what the deal with the transmission is, which I have in my notes as the biggest pieces of characterization that Kate has had in most of her appearances out of all of these. The most that she has had so far is this, where she goes full white woman mode. It's also really sad because she specifically like calls out Shirley on like walking, and they had no way of knowing this, but like literally on Twitter, like within a week of the Starbeast, like people on Twitter were like calling the actress like that they were saying that they were calling the actress out, saying that they were faking it because they could move their legs, even though like being able to have motor function, people can be in a wheelchair and still have motor function of their legs. It just means they can't walk or walk for extended periods of time. And it's really sad that, again, this was scripted years ago, but like literally people were on Twitter proving the episode right before this episode had even come out.
Yep. that was genuinely such a funny, like, oh my god, this literally happened moment.
Yeah.
Like they knew it was gonna happen, because it always fucking happens.
Yeah. It's crazy. The other really funny thing is that they bring back the Trinity Wells, the fucking newscaster lady, for this one-off bit to make her into an Alex Jones joke. Just full on.
Yeah, I will give tepid defense in that she's probably only being femme Alex Jones because of the Giggle thing, but
No, I know. It's just really, really funny.
oh, absolutely, yeah. using connective tissue of the previous era for a little gag.
Yes. So yes, they kind of experiment around and find this transmission that's driving everyone mad. That is the titular Giggle that was implanted into the first televised image ever and has kind of just been in the background ever since. One thing that I noticed on rewatch that I didn't notice the first time around, when the toy maker laughs in the first scene, he does it in that arpeggio.
Yes.
So it's always there. And we get the nice little bit there of getting Bonnie Langford to sing the arpeggio, and Bonnie Langford is like a legit like theater actress who can sing and all that. And they figure out kind of what the deal is. And it's really interesting how the assessment of humanity here that 14 has is it really kind of, again, shows the difference and evolution that the character has had, because it feels much more bitter than what 10 would do. Like 10 has his moments where he gets bitter and when he gets mad, but like thinking about like the doctor's daughter blow up, that's not to like modern humanity. That's to like an allegory. Yeah. He's being very literal here.
It was very, again, heavy-handed, but also RTD. I also appreciated it in the sense that every doctor does this, at least the modern ones to some extent, do the whole extolling humanity and, oh, you're unique, you're my little pog champs kind of thing.
Yes.
You're my special blorbos.
Yes.
Yeah, and
We are the Doctor's Blorbos. We are.
true. Yep. And it's sci-fi. It's a larger trope in sci-fi that I think at one point even Star Trek tried to explain why there's so many humanoid-like things, and it's like, oh, you have a special genetic lineage or some shit. So it's nice to see that, like, the Doctor, of course, has a soft spot for humanity, but he's not blind to how much we fuck up.
Yeah.
And it feels more relevant here. Again, I don't try to shit on Chibnall every time I talk here, but just pulling the latest parallel of what the Doctor says at the end of Orphan 55.
Yeah.
This feels maybe it's kind of because there's actual themes here, but it feels, and it's less drawn out.
Yeah.
But it's earned. It feels right in the moment. Take it or leave it. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's just a really, like, it is literally stating the point of the episode with these lines, and it's great, you know, it's good, you know, again, the line of using your intelligence to be stupid. Yeah, that's what I feel like when I go on Twitter and see people with the absolute stupidest takes couched in, like, faux intellectual or therapy speak. It's like, you've got the general idea of what these things mean, but you're using that intelligence to make the stupidest fucking observations I have ever seen.
Yes, and to be a bit more critical, because I don't just want to fillet the current showrunner. This is again kind of a problem with this episode in that it's tackling so many things right now that if the state of the current world was its own episode, if this was a two-parter, this would not be the point in the story where you would want the Doctor to say something like this. But this is basically the last time this idea is front and center before dealing with the Toymaker and then dealing with, we'll get there, the bi-generation and everything, that it's kind of the last time for the Doctor or any character to have the mission statement of what this means.
Definitely. There's a callback to the President of the World bit where they're like, yeah, we can't blow this satellite up because it's South Korean and we didn't want to start an international incident. The Doctor's like, nah, you can do it. And they're like, okay. President of the world. 14 catches up with Mel, and there's some light references and fan service for classic folks. Rest in peace to Sabalom Glitz. You sure were a character.
Is that an on-screen story?
Yeah, okay. Sabalom Glitz dying is not an on-screen story. Sabalom Glitz, however, is an on-screen character. He's like... So the thing about classic Doctor Who is that the reasons for companion departures were usually kind of bad. So there have been multiple times where it's like, oh, Doctor, I'm going to leave because I fell in love with this random on-screen male character in this episode who I did not interact with, and this was not very well communicated at all. And Mel is, unfortunately, one of the people who fell prey to that. But it doesn't matter because he's dead now. So we get the little funny bit of Donna fucking negotiating her pay if she joins unit. And like, good for her, honestly. Good for her.
What is it, 120K plus 5 weeks vacation?
Yes. That's girl boss shit. I respect that hustle.
Yeah. Jesus.
I will say in general, like, also for Donna's, like, Donna doesn't really do very much in this episode either. And but like when she does do stuff, it's really nice how it kind of taps into a continuing character trope of like, she's not as obviously like the person that would like have the intelligent solution for something in the room, but she's smarter than she looks on and very skilled in specific things, which I like it when they call back to that. and then they run off. It's like, okay, this plot thread's done. Time to run off to 1925 to meet the toy maker. And we kind of get this return again, as has been mentioned. We return to this school reunion idea, which I think fits very well with them bringing Tennant back, because I feel like 10 and 14 are different characters, but like the Tennant doctors in general feel the ones that are like the most domestic and the ones that you can most easily picture like settling down. Like the other ones all, I think, have a bit more prickliness about them in a way that makes them clearly much more wandering spirits. Like obviously, like, I mean, they do, like, obviously, like, I think of like, oh, 11 and 12 wouldn't do, but like they do, but like when 11 does it, he's defending a planet for hundreds and hundreds of years, you know? Like, he's still on the job.
Yeah, and then 12 spends 24 years on Derillium with his wife. So they're... Yeah. And I forget how long teaching as a professor, guarding the...
It was a while. He was sworn for, like, at least 100 years, I think.
Yes. So, yeah, there are times, but it's different in the sense of for the reasons... The explicit reasons why 14 ends up being the one to settle down. And for better or for worse, Tennant is kind of the poster boy of New Who, especially. So having this arc happen to any Doctor for more out of character reasons, but also in character, it does make sense with what we end up hearing as the accepted reason why this face came back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but I do think and get into, I think, Tennant as the face of New Who a bit more later. But yes, definitely. So yeah, and they enter the toy shop and confront the toy maker, and you start getting these great scenes of the two of them playing apart against each other, and quick flickers of colorized footage from the 60s, which actually looks pretty nice. And it's a shame that 3 out of 4 of those episodes are junked, though I think they are going to animate them. They announced that they were going to animate them, but also, again, more importantly, that story is apparently bad. So, oh well.
I do find it funny that the toy maker is like one of these classic villains that gets brought up a lot when he apparently only had one story.
I think there was more like expanded universe material.
Yeah, I know about all
showed up, but like in terms
stuff.
of like, yes, in terms of on screen, there was only one previous story. Yeah. And they kind of run into this endless corridor hellscape, which again, like there is a very good cosmic horror undertone to this story that, again, I feel like doesn't get enough time. Like I love when they do shit like that, like the Doctor's wife. Well, Doctor's wife isn't cosmic horror, but like it's able to play with reality a bit more. Like I think one of the things that this episode does in terms of, like RTD stated, like it is loosing the boundaries of the Doctor Who universe and making it so there can be more kind of fantastical and cosmic elements to it, is good, because I think it's interesting when they play with those tropes. I just think, unfortunately, here they don't really get to do too much beyond with it, other than the set piece of the infinite hallways and the 2 puppet scenes, which are good, but like it's like that's it, and then they move on to the next thing. Like we're now like almost 45 minutes into recording this episode, and I feel like throughout this it's an episode where I've just been going and then because that is just kind of how it flows.
Yeah, very much so. I do wish they had dwelled on this first encounter with the toy maker more, because it is the more compelling part, I think.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it happens like 20 minutes into the episode, so they got to keep moving.
Yeah.
Which, wait. Holy shit. I might have cracked the code. Guys, is RTD actually fucking incredible? Think about it. The pace of the episode never slows down. Well, characters are repeatedly telling the Doctor that they need to slow down and stop.
Interesting.
There is a bit of that quality here.
Okay, so I that doesn't salvage the episode for me at all.
No.
In fact, it doesn't even bring it up at any points. I just thought of it now, and I think that's a funny read to read on it, of like, it is literally narratively rushing to it's like when you play a game and like some narrative element is incorporated into the gameplay, you know? Genius Kojumbo.
When I look at the episode, and it finally struck me how fast-paced and high-octane it is, it made more and more sense why you cast someone like an NPH, beyond the name recognition and sort of the associated clout with it. You need someone who can inject that personality and character in a relatively short amount of time, and props to him as an actor, because apparently this doesn't shock me or anything, but he wasn't really aware of Doctor Who intimately at all, which again kind of is another nail in the coffin for people who insist that actors who get cast in franchise roles have to be fans of the franchise. I'm looking at you, Star Wars fanboys. Chill. So it was refreshing to see a performance like that and kind of feel vindicated in that way. The sequence is rushed. We only really spend the most time with the Toymaker when he's doing that hilarious, well, that's all right then,
which we'll get into. Yeah. And I mean, the other thing that I will say about NPH too is like, casting him was smart because like, he actually can juggle. He has some background in history and puppeteering. He can do magic tricks. He can dance. Like, it's all stuff that he already sort of knew how to do. And he alludes to this in the behind the scenes material of like why he took the role, because it's literally asking him to do all these different things that he knows how to do simultaneously or in very short succession altogether. Like,
he also just has the showmanship for it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Like, that was the critical thing for me when I heard about the casting and who he was going to be playing. I was just like, well, that's perfect, because he's a fucking showman. Of course he's going to be good at that.
Yeah.
Cosmic theater kid.
But yes. But yeah, we get these two scenes with the puppets, which okay, the Donna one's not as freaky, but the one with 14 is great and really, again, like I talk about how sometimes like I feel like Doctor Who is able to get away with things scarier than it theoretically should based on its target age range, just because there's no gore. Like the puppet thing is fucking horrifying. Again, use of uncanny CGI to make the effect even more dramatic.
And then the strings coming up from like a thundering ceiling and seeing a giant NPH. Just
apparently that's like a Nightmare on Elm Street reference. I wouldn't know.
Neither would I.
My friend was saying it was. In fact, said friend is probably listening to this episode at some point. Hi man, how's it going?
I will inject a little bit of a side note here. Last time we watched this episode, we did the rewatch in Spanish just because different language dubs are of a small niche interest. So the Toymaker voice is okay. Honestly, hearing Spanish interspersed with like German is fucking breaks my brain, but sure. And what I appreciated and I didn't notice is that when the puppets are talking to Donna in her little scene, everything they're saying is rhymed, and they actually keep up the effort to do that in at least one of the dubs. So
nice.
Props to that.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably dependent on like the localization studio for each.
Yeah, the rhymes are different, but it works. And
the language, because rhyming is harder in some languages than it is in others, extremely. I'd imagine. But yes, we have the horrifying scene with 14 and the puppets, and then we have what I have in the notes here as Donna doing Doom glory kills on a puppet.
Facts.
Like, it's so great and so in character that they try to like fuck with her, and she's like, no, fuck you, and just fucking murks this puppet.
I feel like so many other companions would get like tripped up by the baby puppets, and she's like, no, and like bashes the shit out of them. Like, yes, kill it, queen.
Yeah. She was so real for that.
Fuck these evil little bastards.
Donna Noble descends into domestic puppet abuse.
Donna Noble would have. Well, it's funny. It comes back to the fucking thing of like, there were jokes when like fucking the Star Beast came out of like Torchwood 3 would have just killed the Meep with hammers, and like that's basically just what they do here. With Donna, it's great. Just smash the shit out of it. They move on to this puppet show, which is great. How it, references the previous years of the show, and it also like it's not. I don't think it's intentional, and if it was, it's only like very loving, like nudges and nods of like how Moffat handled companion departures. Of like, hey, this fucked up thing happened, and then the Doctor Weekly going, well, we kind of. It's not as bad as it sounds, and going, oh well, that's all right then. is just like probably the single funniest part of the episode, that and like the other thing that happens later. And they bring back the flux thing again. People were... It's really funny how, like, some... You know the kind of people. Some people on Twitter were like, how come they didn't mention any Chibnall companions? And it's like, because as much as I fault 13 and Chibnall, 13 actually managed to get all her companions home safe. There's no leverage there. Like, what is he going to say? You dumped Yaz? Because, like, yeah, that was kind of fucked up. But, like...
And then Dan was left with no house. Like,
no, it was necessary. It had to happen for the evil Dan arc.
True.
I'm peacefully living in my lane, not remembering how any of these characters left off.
I mean, you didn't watch the episode where Dan and Yaz left. Did you watch Flux?
I watched half of Flux.
Okay.
Based.
I watched like the first 3 episodes or something.
Yeah.
Everybody was kind of doing it with like, oh, this is Rory erasure, or this is...
Well, again, the joke, this is the evergreen... Like, yes, it's a joke, but this is the evergreen joke I come back to on this is Rory erasure. Because if it was Rory, the episode would be extended by 5 minutes by the toy maker just going, and then he died, and then he died, and then he died, and then he died.
True. Yeah, so a bunch of stuff like that. Is it technically not comprehensive? No, but the point is that as someone will say, he's running on fumes. A lot of shit has happened to him, and it's clear that the rationalization is not working anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And then he challenges the toy maker to a game, and there's some great scenes here where he talks about kind of what he's done, like what the toy maker has done, and you get glints too at the one of my favorite hidden like little details about the episode. The toy maker has too many teeth. Like he has an unnatural amount of teeth, and it looks really disconcerting, and you don't notice it. Like, I didn't notice it the first time until someone literally pointed out, like, the reason why it's so creepy when he smiles is because he has too many fucking teeth.
Yeah, they made a mold of his, upper teeth. I assume with, like, some molder cast, but... Yeah, I noticed it when he does, like, the grin at Shooty.
Yeah.
But the first time it took, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And of course, reason number 5006 why the Master keeps on living.
Yeah. No, the Master thing, that's good. It's so in character too, and it's like it could be any incarnation of the Master. Except for like Missy, obviously, but like Missy's like a closed book. Like it could be Sim, it could be Pre. Like it's such a simple thing enough that it leaves the door open for it to be any Master in there. Like they could just come up with a new incarnation and say it's that. They could bring back Sasha. They could bring back someone else. You know, it's not. It could be anyone.
Yeah, I do enjoy the idea of the power of the Doctor.
Yes.
That Master being all pathetic and having lost, just thinking, oh, you know, this is how I we're
this
so
is
back.
how I win. I have to beat this dude at Uno.
Dance off. It was a dance off.
Yeah. So yes, and there's the bit here where the toy maker mentions the canceling thing, making every opinion supreme. And so yes, there's the canceling thing. But honestly, what I thought of more than anything else is Metal Gear Solid 2. Cause like that's kind of the thing of Metal Gear Solid 2 is his stance on it is very similar to like the Arsenal Gear AI in terms of saying like this is what in that case it's more specifically narrowed down to the internet of like basically predicting of like this causes overload of information and echo chambers and everybody constantly being pitted against each other to be right, which makes it so there ultimately cannot be any truth, just individual ones. But obviously, you know, Metal Gear Solid 4 gets to devote literally, I think, the entire runtime of this episode. Metal Gear Solid 2 is able to spend just monologuing about what its point is. So, and then, so he plays the toy maker at cards and loses. And then the Doctor bullshits, you know, best of 3. And so they run back to the present, and that's it for the 1920s, you know, moving on. And then, that being said, the shop fucking folding up in on itself is really cool.
I feel like it reminded me of something I feel like the house folding up reminded me of a visual I've seen in like some other show, but I don't remember what.
I don't know what it, for some reason, I don't even know why. For some reason it felt kind of like something that you'd see in a Studio Ghibli movie, but I don't even know if there's a Studio Ghibli movie that has something like that. It just made me think of it.
Yeah. Thinking of Harry Potter, that would be fucking cursed.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel like there is something like that.
Yeah.
There's a tent that... Oh, no, there's the building that technically doesn't exist that has to expand.
And I feel like there's also like a couple visual effects too of like people like getting folded up or something.
Yeah, there's several effects like that. Anyways, we know a seasoned companion because Donna is already running from the collapsing house.
Yes, she's like, I'm already going. I'm going. So yes, we go back to unit operations, and they're all working, and then fucking the toy maker busts in, continuing the lip sync arms race. Like we had the Master thing in Sounds of Drums. We had the Master thing again in fucking Power of the Doctor, and now we have this, which I feel like this one just is absolutely like the level of escalation that it should be, just because of how fucking violent it is. Like he's just throwing people against the wall and like turning people into the Dashcon ball pit, and like it's so fucking violent.
You would think that by now, if the Doctor is telling you, "Hey, don't shoot," you literally can't do anything. But no, it's a unit.
Look,
we're gonna shoot shit moment.
Unit have been doing this since Kate's father was in charge. It is generational at this point. Like it is never like Unit's sole purpose in Doctor Who generally 90% of the time is to show up, shoot at the thing, and then the shooting at the thing not work. That is most of what Unit does.
And their uniform should be red.
But yes, the fucking he runs in, he dances with people, he fucking throws them against the wall. It's really funny too, because in the behind the scenes, he's like, "Yeah, I'm American. Spice Girls was not as much of a thing over here. I didn't know this song before, so he had to learn the song." Whereas like apparently, so like I hadn't heard the song before either, but apparently like just if every British person pretty much that has existed since it came out knows the song.
It's kind of like Mr. Brightside.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, Billie Piper charted in England, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, she did.
Who knows?
Yeah. But there is some great like imagery in here too. Like I mentioned the turning the people into the Dashcon ball pit, and then they toss a ball at Shirley and it like fucking screams at her. It's like, this is just a one-off effect, but it's like really horrifying and funny. And then they shoot the guns and Rose Petals comes out. It's great. Again, when they get to play around with like cosmic horror and the fact that like this thing is just, the Toymaker is just on a completely different wavelength. It's like, also, again, have not watched very much Trek. Is this the kind of shit that Q would be doing if Q was showing up in modern Star Trek episodes?
He has done stuff like this. Kind of. There's one episode where he loses his powers and they come back, and to celebrate, he materializes a mariachi band on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Nice.
And starts playing the trumpet. So, modern budget, yes.
Yeah. So I guess with Star Trek, the difference is because it's set in the future, you don't get to like do the thing with like ostensibly contemporary music like it is here. But like, yeah, especially because like he comes in, he does this for like 2 minutes and then he just fucks off and they have to go find him.
Yep.
Like he just does this to fuck with them. And then, yeah. Also, the cost. I feel like the costume changing thing is definitely like the most Q thing. Like I have not seen very much Star Trek, but I have seen like Encounter at Farpoint. So like when he gets on the gun and switches to like a World War II like aviator gunner uniform.
Yeah, he keeps doing that.
Yeah. And so we get to this sequence here on the roof of the unit helipad. At this point, despite all that has happened in the episode, we're still only 40 minutes into the episode. And we get the more talking about the Toymaker's motivations. And I do like I think this bit here is a lot better too, of like talking about games not just in a literal game sense, but also like, okay, so I guess he does have one boomer line in here about like video game players, but like the bit too where he talks more about like not just games as in like actual games that you play, but as in like the social shit that people pull. I
Dating,
think
ghosting.
Is an excellent read on the character and an excellent update for the modern era, you know. And really sells the fact, because it's almost like a twisted mirror of the Doctor, in the sense of the Doctor has always been fascinated with humanity, but is willing to uphold their virtue and follows their morality. Whereas in this case, you have something that is fascinated at all the sheer chaos that humanity has the potential for and regularly causes, you know?
Yes.
It's excellent.
There's a nice touch that 14 basically does the like, come with me, we can play this game across the cosmos, kind of like a mirror offer that 10 gives to the Master, of him being so small. But it's kind of shown growth too, because this isn't the Master. This isn't someone who he has like a special affinity for, but he's willing to do it as kind of like a Gambit last ditch thing. The way that 14 says celestial is kind of so gay that I think he's like channeling Crowley for a second.
Yeah.
Celestial. It's like, okay, buddy.
Yeah. And he shoots the doctor. And again, we're only 40 minutes into the episode. Oh my. I also think it's very funny how he shoots him and interrupts him, makes it sound like 14 saying, "You still owe me one more gay." So true. And so if you think about it in the sense, the toy maker does in fact give him that one more gay that he's owed. He's about
Facts.
to pop out in just a second. And we get into the controversial bit of the episode, the bi-generation. Now, one thing that is worth noting before any further discussion is had is that while optically this does feel a little weird because it's 14 specifically, RTD has said that this is an idea he's had for ages, like even before Tenet and before he brought before anyone got brought back, in the sense of, what if I had a regeneration story where the old Doctor and the new Doctor can talk to each other, like a multi-Doctor story towards the future as opposed to towards the past. And I really do think that the way that this is done, like, he didn't do it just because it's Tenet, like, yes, it being Tenet lends it both some additional credence and some eyebrows to be raised, because let's face it, David Tennant has gotten a lot of leeway when it comes to regenerations. But like, I don't think this happened just because Tennant came back.
No. Honestly, what annoys me the most about bi-generation isn't even the fact that it happened. It's all the discourse and kind of muddled things of like, oh, RTD said in commentary that every Doctor has. And it's just like, well, that's not in the text. So I don't give a shit.
I think the way he was saying that too, of like, basically it makes like it makes like a timeline thing where it's like, oh, well, maybe, in this timeline, they just bi-generated or kept their face or whatever. But again, it's like, it's something they said in a commentary that like doesn't actually matter. It's like Moffat saying that Dr. Moon in The Silence of the Library is supposed to be a future incarnation of the Doctor. Nobody's going to do anything with that. That doesn't matter. It's just a headcanon.
Yes.
Similarly, I don't think this is going to matter, other than maybe like this is their handwave explanation for multi-Doctor stories now. But even then, like, you don't get those that often, so it doesn't really matter.
Sure. I think my final like kind of judgment on it is that this is an anniversary special, so doing something special or unique with regeneration or the lore in general makes sense to me. Yeah, you get to park kind of a lot of the baggage of so much that has happened. You get to park it and say, that's being dealt with. And number 3, if this works, I think, as a kind of somewhat dumb idea on paper that they do something good with, this works if you do it once.
Yes, I agree.
Don't want this to happen like every other time.
Yeah. No, you can't do this again. And I really do think RTD, I don't think he's going to do it again. Like, I feel like ultimately, so the other thing too, that's the can of worms, is that this got leaked.
Yes.
I knew that this was going to happen months in advance because this got leaked. And as more stuff came out, it seemed more and more clear that the leaks were correct. So this got leaked, and I guess to some extent that kind of gave me like the time to kind of go through all the stages of grief and pretty much get to acceptance by the time that it actually happened. But I think I was pleasantly surprised with the the emotional and thematic hook behind it. Like, so I think from a narrative sense, it's creaky. The mechanics are not explained properly. There are multiple different interpretations that appear to have even come out of the show. Like, this isn't even just fan stuff. This is like the novelization versus the text versus RTD, you know. There have been multiple interpretations of it and how it works. And I think, you know, maybe it's not supposed to be explained too much in terms of how it works. Maybe it doesn't actually matter. I think I would be fine with that. But what I'm worried about is that it is going to matter, and that they're going to they're going to say that the way that it works was in some way that I think is bad. And also, I think the splitting the TARDIS thing was overkill, and they didn't really need to do that. But ultimately, I think, given that this is the 40-minute mark where in the last third of the episode, it finally locks in and decides what it wants to be. And we get what is essentially, in some respects, a finale for what New Who has been. And you still technically, you know, this isn't the first time that this has happened. You know, Twice Upon a Time also kind of feels like that. A bit more for Moffat's tenure, but like the way that Moffat's tenure built off of the previous stuff makes it feel like more of a thing for a whole. And yeah, it's a different interpretation from a different showrunner. And while I like Twice Upon a Time's resolution more, I think, than this, just a little bit more, and admittedly part of that is because, you know, it's Peter Capaldi, it's my favorite, that, you know, it's great. It's also, Twice Upon a Time was the final word from a departing showrunner, which means that you get into the problem of, it's very clearly saying, this baggage has defined the Doctor for so long, and we are going to move beyond this and let the Doctor be a new person. And you kind of have this throughout all of Moffat. It starts in Day of the Doctor when it's revealed that Gallifrey isn't dead, and that kind of starts the process. And then you get kind of 12's arc of figuring out who he is after this traumatic event and becoming this genuinely wonderful, loving person, and kind of being the last one to hold this baggage and, you know, saying, Doctor, I let you go, and letting this stuff go and move on. And to me, it always felt like what the intent was now was to let 13 go off as her own person and invent this new identity for the show and this whole new thing. And that's great. But again, it's a parting word from a showrunner who's departing, and it's up to the person who's coming in next to actually do that. And I think Chibnall, I'm trying not to be a hater at this point, because the era's over at this point, and people do genuinely like Chibnall era, and I don't want to disparage people for that, and I don't want to disparage the production team, because from what it sounds like, they had a pretty rough time of things, all things considered. But it feels like with Chibnall is that Series 11 sort of tried to be something new, to start a new identity, to move forward in some way, but it didn't really do it enough to feel like anything different, and just kind of felt like a season of paint by numbers Doctor Who that didn't really have anything particular going for it. And I think they could have eventually gone and found whatever that thing is that would set it apart, but it feels like after Series 11, Chibnall just kind of stopped and went back to the same old shit because nobody really liked Series 11. So all of that work was undone, pretty much. So what RTD did instead was put his finale for all of New Who before it at the beginning, so we could go into a new era with no baggage and doing its own completely new thing, which we've seen Church from Ruby Road at this point. It feels very, very different to what had come before. And how he chooses to do it is to call back very wonderfully to this recurring theme throughout RTD's era, which is the found family that springs up around the Doctor. You know, you have Journey's End, where kind of this family that the Doctor created, these people that he brought together, all come together for this adventure. And here, instead of a family forming around the Doctor, Donna instead invites him into her family in a way that I think is really wonderful and beautiful.
Yes, it is what I would call a shaky to borderline, bad idea on paper being utilized for good, to do something interesting with the character, and honestly, in a show going on this long, giving a chance to do what a lot of franchises don't do, and being like, Jesus, maybe the Avengers should take some time off and do therapy or something. But that's not an exciting movie, for instance. So you can kind of, I'll talk about it kind of in my end summation of the episodes, but it's one of the rare cases where the episode kind of tries to have its cake and eat it too, and it actually works.
Yeah.
I think the only nitpick I have at this point is that it's like a catch-22, because I don't think you could have foreshadowed this subtly at all. And I think the only way that it could have been done is if maybe, I don't know, if the Master bi-generated with like Missy and Dewan. But obviously like that would have been like a whole other fucking thing, and that genuinely wouldn't have been for like any reason. It wouldn't have been for the same character reason as this. And to play devil's advocate for that idea, Timeless Child was foreshadowed a fuck ton, and that didn't help it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm kind of two minds on that. Insert plural joke here. But it's done. Tennant is off. I think I'll be less and less charitable over time if they keep bringing him back too much.
Yes,
but
this is kind of the crux now of like, okay, if you actually stay honest to your word and let 14 be, and don't like, maybe he shows up for a cameo at one point in one thing or a short talk, but like at a point where he becomes a major player, and becomes a major player often, then it's like, okay, as much as I would love a Dr. Donna Earthbound spinoff, because I love David Tennant and Catherine Tate together, I recognize that it would be in poor taste and would also kind of undermine the character beat here. But yeah, I think as of where I am right now, it seems like they're not doing that, and they are genuinely letting him be. And I think that makes it a little bit more comfortable for me. In rewatching the scene also, I think, because the thing that made it uncomfortable too when there were leaks is the fact that, like, because this was Ncuti coming in, and Ncuti, it feels like a big new milestone for a lot of things in terms of people playing the Doctor, in terms of being like an actor of color playing the Doctor, as like an actual main number Doctor, because unfortunately Joe Martin will be forever consigned to the history books as like a weird, not full incarnation. I mean, full in the canon, but like not full in the show itself, which sucks, because it sucks for her, and it sucks because I think her portrayal of the character was pretty cool. Yes. But ultimately, like, he is the first mainstay, like the first major numbered Doctor who is a person of color, and the first one who's openly queer, So it feels a little bit weird to do that, but I think to the episode's credit, it manages to somehow pull off in the framing that the second that 15 is on the screen, he is the main Doctor now. And it is 14 who is the offshoot, the one who's just still around, like the aberration. 15 is in charge from that point on. And literally from his first line, where he says, no, I'm me. I think I am really, really me. I am completely me. It feels like the episode is very unsubtly going, this is the Doctor now.
Yeah.
There's 14 over here, but this is the Doctor now.
And that's why you can't really ever take these leaks. And, I think we've all been guilty of this, of just like, because you can read a lot of stuff on the paper that is either like reads brilliant or reads absolutely stupid, and the execution is like 90% of it or 95, because Shooty is commanding on screen. He is able to share a scene with all these Doctor Who staples, with David Tennant, with Catherine Tate, with Mel, with
Patrick Harris.
Yeah, with NPH, with Lethbridge Stewart, and he immediately, I'm thinking this guy belongs. He's next in line. And that especially hard to do when you realize, like, oh, he's just wearing a button-up shirt, a loose tie, and pants, to use the British thing of it, and it manages all of that while, you know, on paper being very silly for an introduction.
Yeah, it feels like, despite, you know, as I said, narratively, it's a little creaky and clunky, but absolutely, emotionally and thematically, it is a slam dunk. I also love how the ball game finale to this is great, because it's a way for Doctor Who to do an action sequence finale that isn't a fight. Like, it's such clever thinking outside of the box, and you get to do fun stuff like 15 doing a one-handed cartwheel.
Yes. I've heard it argued that it's like anticlimactic, but it's, again, it's of two minds. It's genius
so
in its
Doctor
simplicity.
Who.
Yeah,
it's so Doctor Who, though.
It's simple, and also we need to wrap this up.
Yes. Which is funny because we're still only like 45 minutes through an hour-long episode, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say my quick thoughts on By Generation. I didn't know any of the spoilers, so I was totally shocked by this. And as someone who came into it raw, I was like, oh, that's fucking weird. And then, oh, that's pretty cool. And then, oh, they're really pulling this off.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, they really sold it. I was like, okay, I kind of dig this. It's just like, it's really thematic. He is literally leaving the most tired parts of himself behind to go rest, and he is rejuvenated.
Yeah. And also,
Plural
so
coded.
I think, yeah, definitely. I think there are multiple, you know, in-universe interpretations, and I think the one that I prefer the most is the one that is stated occasionally in the text, which seems to imply that it is like 15 gets pulled back to this point from wherever 14 actually regenerates from. And it's like, it's not that they have split off and become two separate entities. It's more that 14 will eventually become 15 at some point off screen, or the point where 14 would become 15 happened off screen, and 15 just gets pulled up to now, which is why it kind of explains like 15 saying like, I am like this because you got better, and we're just doing this out of order. Where it is essentially meeting from the future self saying, hey, you will get over this. You can move past this. I like that interpretation a lot, I think. I prefer that as opposed to they are literally separate entities, you know? So, yes, the Toymaker is defeated and banished, but not before signaling in arc stuff for whoever the next arc villain is going to be, and hinting that it's going to be like a super cosmic villain. There's also the fucking bit where there's just a shot of someone, like a hand with red nails, picking up the gold tooth that the Master's supposed to be in. And the thing that makes this funny, because normally I'd just be like, oh my god, this is just literally the same thing from Last of the Time Lords again. The thing that makes this funny is that in the commentary, RTD was like, yeah, the Master's not in any of the scripts that I have been writing so far, and he's already like writing scripts for like season 3. So, and he's like he's not actually showing up. This is just leaving the door open. It's just a funny bit.
Like, honestly, Sigma RTD move.
Yeah. Like,
Yes.
okay, if it's just for shits and giggles, all right, sure. Yeah, that's funny. That's fair. That's funny. But yes, another thing that I will say is props to 14 of like David Tennant has done a great job of looking older and more haggard this entire time, but there really is something too of like the second that 15 pops out, 14's just done. Like the exhaustion is just sold so much harder.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's because again, it's micro stuff, and it's just literally like looking at different, like I'll look through different freeze frames of the episodes and be like, how is this all the same person? Because of just how excellent he is at it. But yes, and there's the great stuff with 14 and Donna and 15 convincing the Doctor to settle down. But we do have to get to the one thing of like, this is overkill. This is RTD literally not being able to help himself. They did not need to clone the TARDIS. I'm sorry. It's not necessary. Just don't do it. If anything, it runs counter to the point of like, if he's parked, he needs to be parked. But at the very least, you know, I think this is dumb, but at least the scene gets to show off the Theres ramp, which is cool. Glad that that's finally in here. I feel like to some extent it was meant to be shown off with Bernard Cribbins, but obviously they couldn't make that. His appearance in this episode is pretty much archival audio that they lifted from Poison Sky of telling Donna to go with the Doctor, because, you know, what can you do? The actor wasn't able to do it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. The other thing about this, too, so obviously what this is, thematically, is it is separating the old from the new and saying that this Doctor, 14, who is David Tennant, you know, the face of New Who, really. Like, it's either him or Matt Smith. The face of New Who is essentially being left behind to grow and heal. So the face of what Who is going to be going on forward, you know, RTD2, Disney Plus Who, whatever you want to call it, Ncuti gets to go forward and be himself and be the head of a new and reinvented show. And I feel like this read has just gotten stronger with how very clearly different vibes-wise Church on Ruby Road is. And admittedly, it is a Christmas special, so like there's always some level of like, well, this is a little bit more weirder and out of left field because it's a Christmas special, so it's going for a bit of a different audience. But like, it does genuinely seem like that's how the show is going to be. But you literally have the old 14, the old face, meeting the Celestial Toymaker, an entity that exists outside the confines of what the Doctor Who universe was in New Who. And pretty much every time 14 goes head to head with the Toymaker, he loses. It is not until the new Doctor for the new show with the new style and tone comes in that the Toymaker is defeated and the tables are turned. The Doctor is it's moving forward the narrative in so many ways, in a way, and I think that's really cool and something that I will give the episode props for, even if I think it's kind of messy. You know, the Doctor as a lonely trauma survivor narrative isn't over. It's going to keep happening. But the way that it's going, I feel like they're framing it going forward, which I think is excellent, is like, you know, you're never truly unhealed from trauma, but you're able to cope with it better and move forward and be a person with a happy life going forward. And I think we see that a lot in Church on Ruby Road, where, you know, he's still shouldering the timeless child revelation and all the people in his family that he's gone through and all these things, but he's much different about it. He's much more willing to hold his emotions on his sleeve and be more open with people. And it's great. I feel like I kind of get into rambling with circles because it's such a complicated thing. But
Yeah.
I really do ultimately think that like this is, while it sounds absolutely insane, I think they managed to stick the landing and really do something cool with it.
Yeah. The TARDIS is a bit much. I do agree. The kind of ass pull of like, oh, the toy maker's domain is still in a state of play because I haven't gotten my prize yet. Again, it's just another like thing of there is enough here, especially with the TARDIS, for people down the line, creatives, if they wanted to like, cave into like their like to the worst like instincts of what you could do with this, that you would have an excuse. But then again, like, writers can always pull something out of their ass, so it's not incredibly like bothersome to me. You could even argue that the whole reason Bi-Generation even happened is because the toy maker was already loosening the rules of the universe so much that myths are becoming reality. So it's like, it is whatever. Yeah, the denouement,
Yeah.
everything post toy maker, with the two characters, with 15, with 14 basically desperately having this hug with,
Yeah.
the 14 actually feeling small next to his future self and everything. The end scene, all of it, is the most focused and the most slowed down that this episode gets.
Yeah, definitely. And this denouement with the Noble family and Mel is great too. And yes, Chibnall stands. I get it. It does kind of suck that Yaz isn't here. However, unfortunately, the show is made in the real world and actors have schedules and all of that. There's something that I could say if I really wanted to be a hater, but I'm not going to. No. I want to. I want to, though. Okay. Here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing, Thasman stands. I don't think 13 ever really liked Yaz as much as you guys thought she did. Like, the other way is true. The other way is absolutely true. That's canonical and stated 100% sure. But 13 never acts towards Yaz like she really actually liked her in the same way, and more just kind of wanted to let her down gently,
Yeah.
There is already good fan fiction of 14 reuniting with Yaz. Okay, it's out there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
roam free. The world is your oyster, and it is actually interesting to see it would be interesting to see a heterosexual presenting queer relationship.
Yeah.
But obviously, real world actors have schedules.
Also, to be fair, people would be more pissed off if they did like Thasman, but it was 14 and Yaz. Like, that would just be weird, and I don't think anybody would like that.
Sure,
yeah.
it's there are reasons you can go back and forth on it. I do. Something that I know Aurora really liked is that there's like now a canonical like found family relationship between the Doctor and having a trans girl as his niece.
Yes.
Which is nice. And even seeing, this is going into the future a bit, but with this sort of teaser of this next season coming up of Doctor Who, knowing that Yasmin Finney is back in that role, knowing that RTD wants to do more work with her, and that she seems right now to be open to it, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really just glad that Rose will be back because it feels like she was good in her episode, but like she kind of didn't have as much to do in that episode as she should. So yeah, it's great that she's coming back, and great that RTD's starting to build up. Like, you know me. If they bring back Martha Jones, I will clap and cheer, but I also do like that RTD is like building up his new like stable of recurring characters and not just relying on the same old faces from RTD1. You know?
Yeah, that would my fear would be that he would over rely on RTD1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And hey, Rose barely gets mentioned this entire thing. There's one mention here, but it's really tasteful.
And it's after River's song.
But yeah, that's the Giggle. Does anybody else have anything more they would like to say before we move on to ratings? Dear God, we've been at this for an hour and a half.
Yeah, we need to move on.
Yeah. I'll just say Donna's microaggression.
Oh yeah, Donna's white woman moment is weird. We skipped over that because we were talking about like the other shit with the bi-generation, but that's weird.
Yeah, it's... I would hope that Shooty was okay with that line, because you can conceive of, people aren't a monolith. I'm sure that's funny to some people who are not white, but probably not many if I were to make a semi-educated guess, so whatever.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, to go into my notes for the summation that I wrote like 3 hours after I'd finished watching the episode because I was still trying to unpack all the shit because, oh my God, the Giggle is simply too much. There's no way around it. So many plot threads are crammed into a 60-minute runtime that many of the great ideas that the episode has can't properly spread their wings. While it does eventually figure out what it wants to be about, and it absolutely lands the emotional and thematic hook that it's going for, the cluttered script and somewhat poorly explained mechanic of bi-generation make it not quite live up to the title of finale for New Who like Twice Upon a Time did. While it doesn't have a low as like Last of the Time Lords, like RTD's real dog shit finales, it doesn't have a low as bad as that. It's by far the most overcrowded one, and I think it doesn't quite have the ability to shine as much as some of the best parts of his series finales. I don't hate the episode. I think I like it a decent amount, but I don't think I can say that I love it. Like it's like a B minus. Needs some work.
Cool. I wrote one out this time because you were making me look bad. No, in seriousness though, The Giggle is, on paper, exactly how the trilogy of 60th anniversary episodes should end. The episode provides topical and biting social commentary and pulls from the classic era of Who to excite old fans and hopefully intrigue new ones. Through the action and excitement, character threads are woven into a conclusion that not only feels final for the 60th specials or for Tennant's 14th Doctor, but for the struggles and traumas the Doctor has faced since 1963. However, The Giggle is also an episode that wants to have cake and for us to eat it too. The presence of the Toymaker and the social commentary of his game feel like they're competing with each other for screen time, and consequently, neither feel fully explored. Bi-Generation gives us a novel introduction to Gatwa's 15th Doctor in a multi-doctor climax with true Davies ex machina bombast. Unfortunately, this inevitably results in more time given to 14's happy ending and less time establishing 15. All in all, it's ambitious at best and prone to excess at worst, yet it has unapologetic charm and sincerity in that excess. It's a good time. Strong 8 out of 10. Strong B.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the assessment that this episode is overly crammed. I think a lot of elements of it work individually. I think the opening is really strong, and I think generally the sequences in the unit tower or in the interior of the unit tower are all very strong. I do wish more attention had been given to the first encounter with the Toymaker. I thought that was a pretty strong sequence of set pieces. Overall, thematically, I think it's pretty strong. It sort of has that tie back to the previous episode with like, oh, we accidentally let him in. What else might we have let into the universe, which sort of sets up future things. I think the Bi-Generation was done really well. I'm just like super excited for Shutigata's run, and I think he's really excellent
Yeah.
in the Bi-Generation scene. Just the well, we need to push, obviously, kind of thing was just great, and everything following that is great. I'm just really excited for him as a character. So I think this is like as an individual episode, it's not the strongest. It's kind of a little iffy, but I think it has enough. It has too much going for it, but it also has a good amount of things going for it individually that just don't necessarily mesh together. So altogether, I'd say it's like a 6.75 out of 10.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, and the Giggle being the way it is also makes it really hard for me to like vibe check rank the specials, other than obviously like Wild Blue Yonder is the best. But like, I kind of can't decide whether or not I like the Giggle. Like, obviously people will go in on my ratings and quantify it that way, but like still, like I don't know if I like the Giggle more than the Star Beast or the Star Beast more than the Giggle. Like it kind of just feels like it's more of a how I'm feeling, because the Star Beast is a perfectly solid episode that doesn't like try anything too crazy, whereas the Giggle tries about 15 things and succeeds at like 2 of them, but like succeeds really well at those 2 things. So I guess it just kind of has to go towards how I'm feeling. Wild Blue Yonder is very obviously the best one, though. Very obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving forward, next week we will be discussing 15's first full episode, the Christmas special that just came out this last week, The Church on Ruby Road. Until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
I'm Lucifer Morningstar of the Iridescence. You can follow us on Twitter at Ahura Borealis.
And you can follow us at Twitter at AGPnews.
And we will see you all next time.